Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Now, today, the title of my desana is The Buddhist Spiritual Path, subtitle A Natural Causative Progression Culminating in Absolute Bliss. So as I said, the title of this desana is called The Buddhist Spiritual Path. Yeah, and the emphasis is on this path being a very naturally positive progression. And the emphasis is that the Buddhist path is a path of happiness. And when you're truly committed sincerely to the practice of Buddhism, you can expect to come to higher and higher levels of happiness. Yeah, and that makes the practice of the study and practice of the Dhamma meaningful, irrespective of time. And I would say today, more than other time in the modern time, this understanding that the Buddhist path is a part of happiness is extremely relevant and important. Yeah. So let me then begin with what I think most of you are familiar with, and the very fundamental teaching of the Four Noble Truths. And the tradition believes that this is the basic doctrinal exposition of the Buddha in his very first Dhammadesana. So today, let's begin with this and relate it to our theme. So briefly, as you know, there are four truths. The first is called the truth of dukkha. And note that I have translated this word as unsatisfactoriness, not suffering. And, I believe that suffering is not at all a good rendering of the Pali word dukkha. And even this is the case even in Chinese Buddhism, and they use a word which means like suffering and pain. And of course, this is one major meaning of dukkha, but dukkha means much more than that. Ultimately, it means a state of unsatisfactoriness, a state of imperfection, a state of disharmony. That is to say, compared to the ultimate happiness to be achieved by following the Buddhist path. So we are within the sphere of samsara, and the Buddhist predicament is a predicament of dukkha. And this dukkha doesn't deny experiences of happiness. Not at all. This is one thing I'm going to stress in this Dhammadesana. But it teaches, the truth of uncertainty teaches that although there are happiness, and happiness is important for human being, even to struggle to practice the Dhamma and to face up with a lot of social, economical pressure while you are, trying to practice and understand Buddhism in various societies now. There are a lot of frustration and so on, but there must be happiness. We have what we call the Dhamma piti. You see, there must be a feeling of worthiness as a practitioner of the Dhamma. So in your struggle also, you must struggle happily. That's an important message. So therefore, dukkha doesn't mean just pain. This is the lowest level, if you like, of the connotation of dukkha. Ultimately, it means unsatisfactoriness and disharmony to varying degrees. So this is the first truth. The second truth is about the origination of dukkha, unsatisfactoriness. And the Buddha teaches that is because of the craving of the human heart. And that itself tells us a lot. Because this is a statement of the nature of of a human mentality. That is, that we cannot escape from the fact of craving. According to Buddhism, we are all, until we come to higher states, we are all here on this earth, born into, of course, except those with spiritual attainment, ordinary Puttajanas, ordinary worldlings, are in the sphere called the sphere of sensuality. And this is characterized by craving, by greed. And we cannot escape, we cannot avoid that. That is not the Buddha's teaching. Not escape, but we can transcend it. Okay? So as to transcend it, we must understand what is the cause, what is the origination. And so by stating that this statement, of course, is based on not philosophy. It is based on the Buddha's insight into humanity, human nature. I do not like modern scholars presenting the Buddha like a philosopher. Yeah, of course, we must be grateful to them, and many of them are concerned with presenting Buddhism in a manner that is acceptable, that is pleasing to the modern world, and they are very enthusiastic to present the Buddha as a philosopher, as a very rigorous philosopher, as a logician, as a rational thinker. What I'm saying is, of course, the Buddha's teaching is highly philosophical. The Buddha's teaching is profound. The Buddha's teaching is logical, is rational, no doubt about it. Yeah, but the Buddha didn't set up as a philosopher. He was concerned with dukkha, the human predicament. He has discovered this in his enlightenment, and he realized the cause of it, that is tanha, that is craving. And then not only that, in the third truth, he states that there is indeed the cessation of dukkha called nirodha. That's very important. So the third truth actually is the truth of happiness. That this human predicament cannot be escaped, but it can be transcended. And that indeed, we can attain ultimate, permanent, absolute happiness. And we call this Nibbana in Buddhism. Not only that, then in the fourth truth, he expounds the actual path that leads to this transcendence, that leads to this cessation. So when you look at the Four Noble Truths in this way, right, rather than in a one-sided way and being influenced out of proportion by the word dukkha or pain or suffering, and I translate it as unsatisfactoriness, you can see that this represents the Buddha's insight, as I said, of human nature, of the human predicament, and also a statement that this predicament can be completely transcended. So first thing to learn is we cannot escape. Buddhism doesn't teach escape of reality, but we can transform. So there's a difference, fundamental difference between escape and transcendence. And this is very clearly conveyed in the Four Noble Truths. Nobody can escape from sensuality. We all have craving, and we don't need to be hypocritical because we are not saints. Yeah, but we can't even escape it. But we can follow the Buddha's path and come to higher and higher states of happiness and more satisfaction of our purpose of existence as a human being. And ultimately, we attained what is called liberation. This is the Four Noble Truths, and from this we can see that the whole fundamental framework of the Buddha's teaching is a very positive one. Let me say it again. To me, it is a message of happiness, at the possibility of attainment of true happiness. Right. Then next, I'm going to illustrate this, illustrate that the Buddha's path, the path that he had discovered. I said that Buddha was not a philosopher because, some modern scholars, even Buddhist scholars themselves, they are Buddhists and they want to present Buddha as a scholar and say, and the Buddha begins by saying this, and then he was questioned, he was criticized, and then he revised his so-called philosophy, he improved on it, and then he present a better and more perfect version. I feel that this is the wrong way of understanding the Buddha's Dhamma. His enlightenment, his discovery of ultimate truth is ultimate. It's not a question of progressively, conceptually, philosophically, improving and coming from one version to another. The truth is the truth. Of course, there can be adjustment in terms of presentation. That happens throughout time, and in modern time, you have the so-called modern perspective. But the Buddhist truth, the Dhamma discovered by the Buddha, is eternal. It's not philosophy. So I don't look at the Buddha as philosopher. Those who look at the Buddha as a philosopher, they are very enthusiastic. They want to show that the Buddha is an empiricist, the Buddha is existentialist, the Buddha is a linguistic philosopher. Whatever philosophy there is in the modern world that is the latest, they want to say that's the Dhamma. And that is very naive. It's very naive. Okay? So I have given many talks about the nature of the Dhamma and try to clarify whether it's a philosophy, whether it's a psychology, and so on. But in brief, today we don't have time to go into all these things. In brief, the Dhamma is a Dhamma. It's unique. And it's the truth, the eternal truth that is discovered by the Buddha. It's the message of happiness. So this truth, this eternal truth, the Buddhist tradition says, exists, is always there, whether even the Tathagata appears in the world or not. Yeah. So the word that is to be noted in this context, in this kind of context, is Dhammata. Is what I've highlighted. Yeah, I hope you can see the highlight there. Dhammata means you can say is the nature of phenomena, or actually it means reality. So in this way, Esa Dhammata, or Dhammata Esa, means this is the nature of things, natural nature of things. Yeah. So now I'm going to illustrate the point being underscored. That is that the Buddhist path is a path of natural progression of happiness, greater and greater happiness. Let me cite one sutta called the Chetana Akaraniya Sutta. Chetana, means volition. Akaraniya means need not be done. This sutta states that, when you are truly committed, when you are properly practicing the Buddhist path, it's a matter of natural progression to higher and higher states, and independent on your own volitional wish. So look at this. I'm going to explain to you. In the Pali, it's not difficult. I think you can follow. The first line says that someone who is sila vata and sila sampanna to someone, it doesn't have to be done with volition. He doesn't have to will it. Chedanaya na chedanaya karaniya. How? He doesn't have to will like this. Let non-remorse apatisara me upachatu. Upachatu is what they call imperative. Let it arise in me or for me, then may. This is the case. So he doesn't have to say, oh, yeah, I wish that there is non-remorse. Okay? In fact, it is a matter of, the nature of things that the Buddha said, yang silavato sila sampannassa avipatisaro upachati. You see? So it is a dhammata that. You see? So yang is a connective, if you like, that to someone or first or someone who is silavan and who is sila sampanna, to such a person, there arises upachati. There is born this non-remorse. The word is avipatisaro. It's a natural consequence of someone who is silavata and who is sila sampanna. Let me now comment on the word sila, the concept of sila. If I expound this whole desana fully, I'm afraid this session is not enough. So I want to be very brief. But it is worth remarking on this word sila, the notion of sila. You know, some people understand Buddhism as an emphasis of list of rules. Don't do this, cannot do this, cannot do that, you know. And this is how they understand this, and some are frightened away, you see. Sila is, of course, very important as it is foundation, very foundation of spiritual progress. But what is sila? You see, in Buddhism, you see, sila is not just precepts. Precept is one of the meanings or one of the connotations. The word sila itself basically it means nature. Yeah. So one who is silavan is one who is in line ethically. In line with what? In line with the holiness, the sacredness of the spiritual beings. So when we look up to the Buddha, when we look up to the Arahats, to the great beings in the world, following the Buddhist path, we cannot help being inspired by them. How wonderful they are, how virtuous they are, how noble. So we want to align with them. We want to align with them. And we want to move, propel ourselves towards the same state of sacredness, of holiness, of nobleness. So that is being sila. And to do that, of course, we have to begin by adjusting ourselves, orientating ourselves in terms of our behavior. And that's what is called sila. And that's why there are precepts recommended by the Buddha. These are recommendations, they are not commandments. Because Buddhism is not a theistic religion. And it doesn't believe in external creator, almighty, absolute, supreme authority commanding, thou shalt not kill. So you are virtuous because you obey a commandment of the Almighty not to kill. But Buddhism will question it. That is not true virtue from the Buddhist point of view. Virtue must come from within your own heart. And it comes only when you are inspired. When you are uplifted upwards, and you want to align with that. That is the path of holiness. And this is called sila. So if you do like this, then you are silavat. Sila sampanna means endowed with sila. Someone who is virtuous, who is endowed with sila, he doesn't have to wish that let non-remorse arise in me. The non-remorse will naturally arise in him or her. Now this non-remorse is very important. Again, it's a necessary condition. The first necessary condition, the first step towards the experience of higher and higher, more and more worthy happiness. If you are in a depressed, negative state of mind all the time, you can't practice the Dhamma. You can't make spiritual progress. You can't transcend. You're trapped in the predicament and you try to escape from it. This is very negative. That's why today, in terms of modern psychology, in terms of modern psychotherapy, you find people saying, I'm depressed. They have the so-called depression. When I came to Hong Kong, I learned that word from my devotee because so many people who come to our center say that, they're interested in Dhamma because they are depressed. and they want to find a way out of depression. Because this is, in a way, that is also good, that they feel the need now to want to, transcend, to want to find a way out. But for Buddhism, you should not be overwhelmed by this negative feeling of depressed. You must come to a state, first of all, non-remorse. You feel that I'm happy enough with myself. I can accept myself. Yeah. And this is the beginning. Then only I can move upwards. So the first line tells us a lot about Buddhist philosophy, if you like. Yeah? Again, let me emphasize that I don't want to make Buddhism into a pseudo-psychology, pseudo-science. But you can see what you might, for one or better term, describe as an important psycho-spiritual principle. That the first step on this path of happiness is a state of non-remorse, a positivity. Yeah. And so the first line says that if you align yourself with the holy, with the sacred, even though you may fail, align and attempt to align with the holy and sacred doesn't mean you immediately become a saint. You become holy yourself. It's not possible. We all have craving and desires. We all make mistakes all the time. And we all have to struggle. But even though we sleep, we fall down every day, many times, it doesn't matter as long as we have the commitment. That is the important thing. Okay? So this is the first step. And then this sutta goes on to say that, I abbreviate it, that one who has non-remorse, who not remorsing, he doesn't have to wish, let me be happy. No, when he experiences non-remorse, how does he experience it? On the basis of ethical alignment. Then naturally, it's a matter of dhammata, as a dhammata, that pahamujja is born. Pahamujja arises. Pahamujja means joy or joyousness. It's abstract now, you can say pahamujja. Pramodyan in Sanskrit. So it's a natural principle. This is the next step. You are inspired. You are uplifted higher to the level from non-remorse to joyousness. In this way, then, when you experience joyousness in your spiritual struggle, then you experience piti. You experience piti. Piti means rapture. Very great, very exciting form of happiness. These are terms of happiness. Note that, you see. So the next higher level, you have pahamujja, you are joyful, and you're not only joyful now, you are excitedly joyful, you are rapturous. So you can see the higher progression. How does it come about? It comes out in a very natural manner. It's a method of dhammata. Even the state of mind of joyness, then rapture will follow naturally. And from when the mind, one whose mind is rapturous, piti mana. Piti mana is actually an adjective here. One whose mind is rapturous, if you like. It's called one who is piti mana. So to such a person, then his body become this word, asampati. It's a very important word, and I am introduced to you, especially if you are interested in meditation. In a way, one very important objective of meditation is to attain what is called pasati. You see, pasati is the noun form of pasampati. Pasampati is the verb form. So this word means calms down, becomes tranquilized, it becomes serene, but it means much more than that. When you do meditation properly, provided you start from the proper foundation of ethical alignment, from sila, and then you come to a state of mind, a positive state of mind, and you get rid of a negative, depressive state of mind of remorse, then you feel happy, and when you feel happy, you feel excited, you feel rapturous, and then what you experience, is a state that is called passaddhi. Passaddhi means calmness, it means tranquility, it means serenity, it means a sense of lightness. Now, in the Sarastivada and the northern form of Buddhism, I'm not even talking about Mahayana. I'm talking still within the sphere of early Buddhism. This word also very much emphasized. Of course, Mahayana is, in a sense, even more. This term in the whole Buddhist tradition represents a state of mind of fitness, spiritual fitness, of aptitude, of pliability. Your mind become pliable, become ape, become fit for what? For spiritual transformation. You have to come to this state. Yeah. So note that up to now, to come to this state, your mind must be happy, must be positive, must be joyful. Yeah. And to be joyful, you must align yourself. This is a whole sequence. So you come to this, and you experience psycho-spiritual pliability. This is very interesting. Your mind, your body also. Body and mind are not separate. And in the spiritual progress, in meditation, where your mind is tranquilized, your body ultimately also becomes tranquilized, becomes serene. And that's represented by the word pasampati. And for one whose body is serene, is tranquilized, pasatta kaya. Again, this is not a noun, it's adjective. This person, he experiences happiness. This is sukha. I translate this as happiness. In fact, all the other states you can see that we have described just now are states of happiness. So you come to a state called happiness. And this is, of course, you can see a word that is usually explained as opposed to dukkha. You come to a state now, you have transcended the state of frustration, fundamental frustration, existential anxiety, in the human existence, you truly experience happiness. When you can experience happiness in this way, there's happiness that's underlined by body, mind, pliability of joy and so on. What happens? Then only your chitta can become equipoised. Chittang, for someone who is sukking, who is happy, who possesses happiness in this sense, in this way, not ordinary happiness. By the way, we're going to look at this idea of happiness very soon. His mind is said to be samadhiyati. His mind is equipoised. Normally, you see this word translated, his mind become concentrated. Now, I do not like, again, this another, I think, important pertinent remark to render samadhi as concentration. In the context of the Noble Eightfold Path, you have samadhi. Yeah? And it is as if you understand samadhi as a matter of just concentration, it's very unfortunate. You distort the thought. Yeah? It's as if the whole Noble Eightfold Path leads you with all your struggle, with all its profundity, only to culminate in a state of concentration. No, samadhi, especially prefixed by the word samadhi, it means much, much more than concentration. Concentration is one condition. But the word itself, sam, and da, means actually integration, unification. And I call this equipoise. You see, fully harmonized. I say that dukkha is disharmony. Yeah? It's unsatisfactory. So when we come to samadhi, the personality become integrated. That's also a very important word. Again, cautiously speaking in terms of modern psychological terms, you see, you truly achieve integration of your personality. Normally, our mind is fragmented and is disintegrated. We have to be brave to face this, to acknowledge this. And we like to have a rosy picture of ourselves and say, oh, I'm a Buddhist, I observe this, I observe that, and I do meditation every day. I'm not sure whether these people who say they do every day meditation is really doing it, but people like to say that, and I admire them also, of course. But they don't really understand the concept of samadhi. Huh? Attaining samadhi means attaining spiritual unification. In a state that is without samadhi, is a state that is fragmented. That's what we are normally. One of ourselves want to do something holy, sacred, spiritual. Another part of ourselves is attracted to something lowly, something at least mundane, And for instance, if you want to come to this Dhammasavana, you have to struggle with yourself, because there may be other parts of you who have wanted to join a party, who have wanted to spend your time in a so-called happy manner, in a mundane way. So in that way, it's normal for all of us to experience a state of disintegration, this harmony. You might even say that, in a sense, now don't overquote me, of course, don't interpret out of proportion, but in a sense, at least in a sense, we are all schizophrenic. We are all split. Yeah, don't be frightened. We are all split. But according to this part that I'm explaining to you, you come in a natural manner, progressively, to a state to transcend this. Yeah, this is how. This is how in the true sense. This is not to help by having some medicine to overcome your bodily and your mental, discomfort, but help in the spiritual sense. So the Buddhist conception of health is holistic. You see, so you come to be fully integrated. That what is represented by word samadhi. Remember that, right? So the mind only when your mind can only be integrated, right, in a spiritual way when you experience true happiness. That's called sukha. And you can experience true happiness only when you experience this psycho-spiritual pliability aptitude. And that presupposes a joyful mind, okay? Which presupposes a state of positivity devoid of remorse, feeling of remorse, which presupposes the alignment of your living. That is called sila. So this you can see a lecture progress up to this point. So when you are fully integrated, what happens? When you get samadhi, it's not just a matter of just being concentrated. So when you're integrated, then wisdom can shine forth. So yang samahito, you can see that, yatha putang janati passati. I read the whole Pali here because I want to emphasize this also. This has to do with, I know many of you are practicing vipassana. I think this is a very inspiring statement. Remember this. What the Buddha is saying is that one who is spiritually integrated, who is equal poised, right? Then he gains insight. It's almost, I say almost, it depends on how you interpret it. It's almost, it almost amounts to the statement that samatha and vipassana cannot be separated. Right? And when people practice vipassana, sometimes they tend to overemphasize the practice. Of course, it's important to emphasize vipassana is, of course, in a sense, the higher thing, but how can you have vipassana without samadhi? You see, this statement says that when you have samadhi, when your mind is samahita, automatically, naturally, as a matter of dhammata, you see things yatha putam. You know things, janati, one knows, passati, one sees yatha putam, truly as things are. That is vipassana, that is insight. Okay, of course, this samadhi is much more than just a matter of samatha in the modern sense, but I leave it at that. But this shows you the integration of these two aspects. The mind must be fully integrated, and then insight arises. When vipassana arises, it presupposes samadhi also. Someone who gains vipassana, surely he has samadhi. The two cannot be separated. Then next, according to this sequence, a higher state that goes from here is one who is janang passang. Can you see that these two words are present participle, nominative case? One who is understanding, who is seeing, yatha buddhang now is an adverb. One who is seeing and understanding things truly as they are, then he nibindati and virachati. Then he literally becomes disillusioned. He becomes disenchanted, maybe a better word. Another word that is perhaps more literal is because in nirvit, turns away and becomes disgusted. But that word could have a negative connotation. But I think disenchantment is a better term. Virachati is a verb corresponding to viraga. We are more familiar with viraga. Viraga means detachment, right? So one becomes detached, and one becomes disenchanted, nibindati. So nibindati is not a case of just being disgusted in a negative sense, in a depressive sense, if you like, but a state of natural letting go. You just let go happily. Why? Because you see things as being impermanent and so on, as being unsatisfactory, etc. And they're not worth. In fact, there is nothing. When you realize anatta, there's nothing. There's no entity to be attached to. So in a very natural way, you let go. Learning to let go in a natural, spiritual way is a very advanced state. You see, it comes up to here, starting from the beginning, starting from being silavata and so on. Now, only when you truly can see things as they are, it's a matter of, again, it's not a question of intellectually, conceptually understanding and seeing things. Well, I read Dhamma book, I have attended a course, MA course in Buddhism or whatever. I've understood all these Pali words. Understanding intellectually is important, but it's just one thing. It represents the lower level. But yatha buddhang is truly, and you gain spiritual insight. And that insight is independent on your Dhamma book, on your courses that you have, on the instruction that you have been given. You yourself, from your heart, from your mind, you see things through as they are. Then you feel happy. In a happy, positive way, you let go. You become disenchanted. This is the word nibindati, virachati. You become dispassionate. You become detached. So detachment is now, when you read this carefully in this whole context, is both nibindati and virachati are positive states. They are not negative states. And finally, when one who is disenchanted and who is dispassionate, nibinno virato, then the word is very important, sachikaroti. Sachikaroti means he realizes directly. Yeah? And this is a very important, it connotes direct realization. Again, it means that it's not just a matter of intellectually understanding something, like a scholar, like a student, not like that. You directly sachi karoti. With your own eye, face to face, you see reality. So you realize this. From practice, you come to realization. Realizes what? The jnana dasana of vimukti. So this is the final goal now. knowledge vision of liberation. You can't liberate it. And you can see that by following this whole sequence, you know that this vimukti then must be a state of perfect happiness, of perfect harmony, of the highest state of bliss, of true freedom. When we like to think that we are free, you see, and people think, I'm a clever Buddhist, I'm intelligent, I'm not that type of superstitious Buddhist. I don't even call myself Buddhist, and they say, they follow, they are influenced by. Let me say one thing, all this kind of mentality, from my point of view, from my own understanding, in my own experience actually, because I came from Malaysia, I came from an Asian background, I came from a background of different types of education, and then of course I also went overseas, I studied overseas as well. I have lived also in the West, learned in the West, and I realized when I came back that Asians, including Asian Buddhists, importantly, let's remind ourselves, Asian Buddhists have been badly westernized. I'm not anti-westernization as such. I think there are a lot of marvelous things in Western culture, and we can learn a lot from them. But their values, many of their values are Judeo-Christian, and from the Buddhist point of view, you see, they are not spiritually conducive. So unfortunately, we have gone through colonization. We have gone through the whole system of education that's basically westernized. Whether it explicitly says so or not, it doesn't matter. But the books you open, the education system, the curriculums, and the approaches are all basically so-called modernized perspective, which basically means Western perspective. So I think we have to raise the awareness of this. Today, Asian Buddhists must shake up all this conditioning, whether it is Western, very, very badly, Western conditioning, and also, of course, some traditional conditionings, whether it's in India, whether it's even in China, there are a lot of traditional conditioning that are not conducive spiritually from the Buddhist point of view. You must shake them off. Otherwise, whatever you do, the way you think, you might think you are being free, you are making free choices, intelligent choices, but you have been conditioned. Your mind has been conditioned by these kind of systems, spiritually non-conscious systems. So we are not free. You say, I go to the supermarket and I have read this instruction, the instruction, I think this is a good brand and there's a bad brand. You think that you're intelligent. Yes, you have exercised your rationality, and that's one thing good, but don't forget that you have been exposed to all the advertisements. The moment you step out of your house, the moment you open the newspapers, you see? So consciously or unconsciously, you have been conditioned by all these notions of what is good, what is efficient, what is proper, and what is a so-called sensible choice, and you make the choice. So what at best we have only relative freedom. We don't have true freedom. And true freedom is represented by the word vimukti here. Vimukti in the real sense. That means at this stage you completely have transcended all form of conditioning. Just now I said that some people argue that we don't have to call ourselves Buddhist. Calling ourselves is a label. A label is an attachment. I have seen this kind of argument. I've been confronted by this kind of argument. Why do you call yourself a Buddhist monk? Why do you want to have the name Dhammasavana? And so I told them it's very, very important for me to have the awareness that I'm a Buddhist. I must be happily committed to that. I must happily follow a Buddhist name because all this is inspiration for me. True, all these are also conditionings. But relatively, positive, higher form of conditioning than those conditionings that are characterized by Western values. So one attains vimukti in a true sense only when you come to the state when you can see things and understand things yatha bhutam. And when you can then let go and you become not enchanted, not attached to things that are not worthwhile. And you know that there are higher values, there are higher goals, there are higher meanings, the higher dimension, if you like, of human existence, higher levels that we can in fact develop into. We can unfold the human potential to the highest. So when you come to this state, that person truly can be bintati, can be rachati. And only then, finally, the person realizes vimukti. And he gains insight, he gains understanding that he is liberated. That is liberation in the true sense. So this sutta very profoundly shows us a natural sequence. And the important word to note, as I say, is dhammata, a natural, nature of things that moves you from one state to a higher and higher and higher state, more and more spiritual state, happier and happier state, until you gain vimukti. This is the Buddha's way. This is the Buddhist path. So when you understand like this, again, it's like understanding the Noble Eightfold Path. Sorry, the Four Noble Truths. You see, usually people say Buddhism talks about suffering. Everything is suffering. It's so negative, and is preoccupied with suffering. No, because they have not understood Buddhism in its proper perspective. The way I've explained the Four Noble Truths is to show you that, in fact, it is a statement, a positive affirmation of the possibility and also a concrete guidance, in terms of giving you a mark, a path to reach that, a state of happiness, a state of transcending, a state of transcendence of the predicament of dukkha. So just now, this whole description from the Cetana Karaniya Sutta also, in the same ways, shows us that that's why Buddhism talks about sila. It's not a question of obeying. As I say, sila is not a question of commandment. If we follow Buddhist sila in that way, it's very unfortunate. That I'm a good Buddhist because I obey the Buddha's teaching. I obey my Buddhist tradition. My Buddhist tradition expects me to do like this, not to do like that. There's not sila in the proper sense. But when you align yourself to want to develop your nature, step by step, progressively, by aligning yourself with the holy, with the sacred, with the noble, then only that is sila. That is the beginning of the true, meaningful practice of observance of sila. And then in this way, gradually, it leads to vimukti in a positive way. Yeah. So this same sutta goes on to come to a summary by the Buddha. So it says iti in this way. The nibbida and viraga, you see, what does it have? As its atta, as its anisangsa, what does it have as its purpose, as its benefit? The purpose is vimukti yana dasana. We saw just now. Yeah? And what is the benefit? What do you want, in other words? Why do you want to be a Buddhist? Why do you want to practice Buddhism? Well, it is vimukti jnana dasana. So it has vimukti jnana as its atta and has anisangsa. Yeah, and why do we need to have Yatha Bhuta Jnana Darsana? Why do we need to attain insight and knowledge of things truly as they are? This is in order to gain the purpose. The artha is nibbida and viraga. And the benefit we get is nibbida and viraga. That's why we want to gain insight. Not to be a clever scholar. Never say Buddhism is superior because we are intellectual. We are intelligent. We talk about intelligence. We don't talk about faith. We don't talk about superstition. I think you are distorting Buddhism in that way if you think like this to yourself. So to gain true insight, even to practice vipassana, what is that for? It's in order to come to a state when you can truly let go, truly become disenchanted, truly detached from unworthy things. Yeah? And samadhi now, I mean, the kind of coming upwards, reverse manner, you practice samadhi for what? Not for psychic powers, right? Not for reputations. You practice the atta, it has Yatha Bhuta Jnana Darsana as an atta. And all these are actually adjective terms. They call Bahuvrihi. You see? But you see, this is masculine. Just now you have here, for instance, this is neuter. You see, because Jnana Darsana is neuter. So Nibbida, Viraga, Attang is adjective for Yatha Bhuta Jnana Dasanam. Can you see that? So likewise here, Samadhi is a masculine term. So this is the adjective that is masculine, nominative, singular, qualifies Samadhi. So Samadhi has is utter Yatha Bhuta Jnana Darsana. So why do we practice Samadhi? Because we want to gain insight of things truly as they are, to see things truly as they are. And when we practice this, we get true insight of things truly as they are, as is anisangs. Right? Then next is, going upwards is sukha, because samadhi presupposes sukha. That's a very interesting point, you see. Buddhism, the Buddha does not deny human experience of happiness. It's very clear. Happiness is a very important state. In fact, you can have true happiness in the spirit sense only if you have samadhi. Yeah. So, but why do you have happiness for what? Sorry, I should say that when you have happiness, then you can samadhi. You see, for the purpose of gaining samadhi. And the anisansa, the benefit, is samadhi. When you gain happiness. How do you gain happiness in the true sense? You must gain what they call passaddhi. This is the noun form. You see, it's now feminine noun now. So sukha attha is feminine. Sukha anisansa also feminine. Because these two adjectives qualifying passaddhi. I told you this. Watch how this word learn today. It's one of the important keywords for meditation, spiritual experience. But let me tell you one thing. In the form of in Sarvastivada Abhidhamma, as well as particularly in the later form called Yogacara. Now Yogacara of course became Mahayana, but we cannot be reactive just because just something is Mahayana is something that doesn't contain in true Buddhist teaching. We should not feel like that. It depends on how they present the teaching. It's not what sect they belong to, what school they belong to. Okay, so I'm just saying one thing. Yogacara is emphasis on practice of meditation. The whole school is a school emphasizing on meditation, focusing on meditation, right? And they believe that you can have true hope of transforming yourself, of transcending, of complete unfoldment human potential, only if you do meditation. Now that is not different from Theravada emphasis, it's the same thing. Sila, Samadhi, Panya. You see? Without going through samadhi, you can't have panya. Without panya, you can't be liberated. That's why all Buddhists should do some meditation. This is my message and my emphasis. I don't claim to be a meditation master, right? Of course, I have conducted meditation classes, and here in Buddha Dhamma Center, also every Sunday I conduct it, and I meditate with my devotees, and I am struggling myself and since my youth. But my understanding and my message now is that to be a true Buddhist, we must do some meditation. You don't have to. Everybody goes to the forest and spend your whole life meditating. That depends on your mentality, your temperament. Yeah, that's great. That's good, and they are great masters. They inspire us, meditation master, and we learn a lot from them. And in a way, their way of practice is more kind of focused. But the lot we can do as very ordinary human beings with all our raga, dosa, and moha, if we meditate. When you meditate, the whole consciousness is being transformed in ways that you don't understand. The human being cannot understand. The modern psychology and science cannot properly understand. Yes, we can understand to some extent. We can interpret in some extent in terms of science and psychology. But the deep processes that spiritual, psycho-spiritual, cannot be fully interpreted and understood in a rational way. You might even say in a scientific way. Yeah, I for one objects to that kind of over-enthusiastic approach of making meditation a pseudoscience and measuring all your getting all your parameters from the physiological parameter and then matching it to mapping it into spiritual states. I think it can if it is properly done, sincerely done, it can be inspiring, it can be very helpful. But then, if you are not cautious, you are distorting Buddhism. You're distorting the spiritual experience, the spiritual realization. So coming back to this school called Yogacara, they say that the whole Buddhist path should be a path of transformation, right? So their goal is called Asraya Paravritti. You could even translate this term to mean revolution of your basis. Asraya means the psycho-spiritual basis. The very revolution of the fundamental seat of your consciousness. This is the goal. And I think it's just a way of expressing by themselves, but it certainly aligned with the early Buddha's teaching also. That the Buddhist path is a path of transformation. It's a path of unfolding our human potential more and more and more to the highest. When a human being unfolds his or her potential to the highest, then he or she is a Buddha. This is Buddhahood. This is perfect insight. Yeah, and Buddhism teaches that everybody has that potentiality. So Yogacara emphasizes this transformation. Now, today I don't have time to introduce to you. This transformation in brief, in their description, is a transformation from the state of Daustulya into Prasapti. Prasapti is a Sanskrit of Pasatti, you see. So from what you might call spiritual grossness, Daustulya, into spiritual pliability, calmness, aptitude. And you can only do that through the path of meditation. So Pasatti, I emphasize again, is a very important word to learn, to mark. You see, we are interested in the meditation process of transformation. Okay, so just now we see, then we move upward, you see the word rapture, rapturous happiness, excited happiness. What do you want to do? Have that? Not just more and more distracted by happiness, in a hedonistic way, but it has pasati as a purpose. Pasattat atta. Is it feminine again? Pasat anisangsa. That describe piti. Yeah. And pamuja, joyness. We need joy. We need joy in order to gain piti. With piti only you can gain pasati and so on. It goes upward that way. So piti is for the purpose of gaining pasati. So rather than translating this word, you can translate as calmness. Pasati can mean calmness, can mean serenity. It's not wrong. Even lightness, as opposed to heaviness, but it connotes a lot more than that. Kind of spiritual fitness, aptitude that is gained through the path of meditation, the Buddhist path. And so now we come next to, once the higher, we see the word pamoja. We need joy. Why do you need joy? You need joy so that we gain greater happiness, even rapturous happiness. But how do you get joy? You get joy when you are in a state of non-remorse, a positive state of mind, that you can accept yourself. However sinful you feel you might have been, however many times you make mistakes, it doesn't matter. You must have joy. To have joy, you must have a positive state of mind to be able to accept yourself first. To feel that, yeah, I'm fit. Right? I'm as worthwhile as any other human being, you see, to go on this struggle, this path of struggle. To have this positive state of acceptance, of non-remorse, then you must be ethically aligned. That's called sila. So the Buddha said, iti, in this way, Dhamma dhamme apisantenti. This is from Shat, kind of the flow, to nourish the flow. So, from the Dhamma is the states, spiritual state now you can say, overflows into spiritual states. One flows on to another. So one leads on to another. One, not only the matter of flowing on, abhinisanteti means to fill up, to overflow in the sense of even nourishing, leads you on to enhance one Dhamma to another. Dhamma dhamme paripurenti. This state, spiritual state, fulfills other spiritual state, one another. Apara param gamanaya. For the going, gamanaya, they dedicate. From apara, so apara, the political case. The aparang, accusative case. You see? From, if you like, this shore to the other shore, param. So, finally, in other words, transcendence. You go from this shore of samsara, you come to the other shore, that is nibbana. This is a part of transcendence. This transcendence is led on to, so the gamana is going, gamana for the going from this human predicament to the other shore of liberation, of vimukti. This is through a path, the Buddha's way, the Dhamma. And you can see that this sutta tells you that this way is a way of positivity. It's a way that leads you from higher and higher levels of happiness. Truer and truer, more and more meaningful, more and more spiritual form of happiness. And finally, the most meaningful, the truest, the absolute form of happiness, of course, is para, is the other shore, nibbana. Okay? So this sutta, I think, very beautifully illustrates the positive path of progression, according to the Buddha's teaching. So let me summarize it, because there are so many Pali words in English now. So you can summarize like this. If you strive sincerely, this is the premise. Huh? It doesn't mean automatically you just do a little bit of this and that you gain nibbana. It doesn't mean that, but you must strive, and you strive with commitment, with sincerity. Then from starting from ethical alignment, you align yourself, then you gain non-remorse, a positive state of mind that is now fit for you to experience higher state of happiness. You can't even experience this if your mind is repressive, if your mind is depressive, if your mind is remorseful. And that tells you a lot about what you might call the philosophy, inverted commas, of ethics, Buddhist ethics. Today we don't have enough time to expound any more than that. But anyway, so this is the first state. Ethical alignment, there's a sila, leads to non-remorse. Non-remorse leads to joy, joyousness. Joyousness leads to pasati, this term. I have given you again in the Pali, which basically means a psycho-spiritual aptitude of pliability. You are now fit for transformation. Like, a metal like gold, you can transform gold into different types of ornaments because it's pliable, it's workable. So you come to that state. That is the notion of pasati. So that, you see, presupposes joy, and joy presupposes a positive state of mind of non-remorse, which presupposes ethical alignment, right? So you come to here. And finally, with this psycho-spiritual aptitude, then you can only then you can gain true happiness. This happiness in the true sense. And with this happiness in the true sense, spiritual sense, you gain what we call samadhi. You see, I render this at equipoise. This is the word I was using, or integration or unification. But with this equipoise, only then you gain insight. You gain, if you like, vipassana. Insight into things truly as they are. With this true insight, then you can become disenchanted and dispassionate. You can truly and happily let go. You just drop things that are not worthwhile. You see? I often use the example because I'm a diabetes, you see? And I love chocolates. Please don't offer chocolate to me now. my student used to offer, and they, knowing that I like chocolates, different types. And finally, I don't blame that, but there are many reasons for me to have developed diabetes. But so I developed a kind of attachment to chocolate, for instance. And so if you want to struggle to kind of, put aside the chocolate, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to let go. And but you can transcend it. You can escape that craving, but you can transcending means come to a higher level. You come to a higher level, you look down, what happens? What is difficult? What's problematic at lower level? At this higher level now, it's no more problem. Right? It doesn't harass you anymore. That is transcendence. So when I have gained insight into my state of being a diabetes, and and I gain insight into the harmfulness of sweet things, I just stop it. So this is something like this. Then with disenchantment and dispassion, then only you gain. You come to realization, a very important word, not understanding. Realization of knowledge, vision, or liberation. Conceptual understanding and spiritual realization are two different things. Okay? So remember, this is nothing to learn. So in this way, the Buddha said, one state of attainment nourishes or fulfills the next. In a natural sequence, the word that we have seen, what is that word? Dhammata. And it's not chetana karaniya. Doesn't have to be will. If you have sincerity, you are doing it properly, fully committed, then it will unfold. It will happen. You will be uplifted progressively to higher and higher. This is the Buddhist path. So I cannot help feeling that this is a path that is most meaningful now to human beings in modern time. Yeah, this really underscores the worthiness of the Buddhist path. Whether you call yourself Buddhist, it doesn't matter. But this is the Dhamma. Okay, that leads on. This is to remark on different types of happiness. And I have said that the Buddha's insight into the Noble Truth is an insight into the nature of reality and into the nature of the human mind. In the human nature, he discovers, he doesn't philosophize, he doesn't conceptualize, but it's a matter of discovery. He discovers that it is a mind that seeks higher and higher, more and more happiness. You can't blame yourself. And we crave, but it's a matter of craving for the right thing. To want to gain Nibbana is also a form of craving. Yeah, but higher and higher things. To learn the law, more Dhamma, rather than going to the parties and doing all those mundane things, is a form of also attachment. But attachment in the higher sense, in a higher sense, in the right direction. So therefore, Buddhism does not deny human nature. The Buddha discovered of seeking happiness. Buddhism points out, in fact, that this is the very samudaya. This is the very cause of our fundamental experience of frustration, of unsatisfactoriness, called dukkha. Yeah. So the Buddha doesn't teach you. The Buddha doesn't teach you to escape from it, but to transcend it. Yeah. So here in another sutta, again I highlighted some sentences very briefly. This is in the Sutta Nikaya called the Ni'amisa Sutta. Amisa is something raw, rawness. Ni'amisa is without the rawness. That is, this word represents, correspond to what you might say in English, spiritual. Yeah, whereas Samisa is the opposite. Is what pertains to the raw. That is materialistic. And in a very tangible sense, it also can mean carnal. So the Buddha speaks of that in this sutta, different forms of happiness. And he says that there are happiness, we're going to see soon, that are first of all, carnal or materialistic. So there are rapture that are materialistic, and then there are rapture, same thing, piti, that are spiritual. And very interesting thing. Okay, first, piti, there is samisa, piti, there is niramisa, that is piti that is materialistic, piti that is spiritual, ati, niramisa, niramisa tara piti. That means that the piti that is more spiritual than the spiritual. The spiritual in the higher sense, in other words. You see? So different levels, in other words, of just using one example of piti, that various terms used, sukha and so on, upeka, various terms are used here. So about piti, you have this distinction. Then about sukha also, you have the same distinction. Sukha, the happiness that is materialistic or carnal, but there are happiness that are spiritual. We all know from what we have explained just now what this means. Then we have happiness that is more spiritual than the spiritual. The amisa, this is a ablative case. The amisa tarang. Tarang is more more amisa than more amisa than the amisa. Likewise, upekkha also, equanimity. Yeah, also amidst of different levels. Can be upekkha that is materialistic, equanimity that is materialistic, and it can be spiritual, and that is finally upekkha that is more spiritual than the spiritual. Finally, of course, the final goal we have seen is vimokha or vimutti. Vimukha also different types of liberation. The final one is the one that is most spiritual, more spiritual than spiritual. So in this way, the Buddha described different levels of happiness, of equanimity, of liberation. Now, if I'm going too far, let me know if I'm spending too much time. So the Buddha explains. Now give more concrete example now. Yang ime pancha kama gune paticca upachati sukhang somanasam idamuchate samisang sukhang. So what is meant by samisang sukhang? What is meant by sukha that is materialistic or carnal? It's a type of happiness, kind of happy-mindedness, if you like, that is that arises conditioned by the pancha kama guna. That is the 5 strains of sensuality. 5 sensual objects. The object for the mind, for the sight, for the hearing, and so on. That 5 sensual objects. Each gives. When you see something beautiful, we want it. We want to possess it. We get attached to it. Whether it's a human, another human, or whether it's money, whether it's reputation, etc. So these are objects of sensuality, kama guna. 5 of them. So the type of happiness. So see, this doesn't deny that there's happiness like this. The happiness, happy state of mind that arises, upachati, paticca, conditioned by, dependent upon the kama guna. This type of happiness is what you might call carnal or materialistic. Then, what about what is described as spiritual happiness? What does the Buddha mean by that? Now he points to happiness that is gained in the path of practice. And here he gives an example of meditation. For instance, when you enter the first jhana, you remember the description, vivekachang, piti sukhang, So the piti and sukha, rapture and happiness, that vivekachang, that is born out of viveka, of solitude. So you come to solitude, you meditate, you leave aside the circle of friends and people that would distract you, who influence you negatively. You come to a more quiet place, you live a simpler life, and finally you meditate and you gain to the first jhana. Then you gain piti and sukha. That piti and sukha is a result of viveka. Viveka, ja is born. That type of happiness is what they call niramisa happiness. Likewise, samadhi-jang. So viveka-jang, this is the description for the first jhana, and then samadhi-jang, piti sukhang is second jhana. To come to higher states, higher possible state of human happiness, and to enter into the first jhana, you need viveka, you need commitment. You need a restructuring of your values. You have to change your lifestyle. You have to, if you like, make a kind of sacrifice with the commerce. So I'm opposed to the type of meditation. I think one form of modern meditation originated in India. I'm afraid I'm a little bit critical, but now I appreciate the modern emphasis on meditation also. Many circles in India, that was great. They were kind of modern versions of ancient meditation, and I think we have to appreciate their effort. But the way that certain forms have been presented to the Western modern audience I think it's very distorting to the spiritual tradition of India, whether it's Buddhist or Hindu or the whole of, the Indian tradition. For instance, one form says that what you need is the true technique. They emphasize so much on technique. Get the right technique, everything will follow. That's what they say. And what they emphasize is the spiritual, not spiritual, but the physiological benefits. If you meditate and metabolic rate goes down, all these are true, but meditation has much more spiritual value, spiritual purposes than just gaining these physiological benefits. But when you present this way, thinking that this is the so-called scientific way, attractive way to the modern audience, I think you are distorting the profound Indian tradition of meditation. So I don't like that kind of modern presentation. When you see a statement that the first jhana is entered into, right? With this vivekajang pidisukam, you see clearly there is emphasis. You have emphasis on viveka. Viveka means separation, seclusion, solitude, right? Separation, that is to, as I said, from wrong circles of friends. And in other words, it involves a change of lifestyle, a commitment to a more considered lifestyle. It's not just an emphasis on getting the right technique. This is the Buddhist emphasis. Huh? So, and then you can't even hide than that. This is the beginning only. Huh? You need to gain samadhi. When you gain samadhi, and then you have true piti sukha. And that piti sukha is niyamisa, is spiritual. This is what is meant by spiritual benefit. So we have understood from these two sentences that what is meant by materialistic happiness, what is meant by spiritual happiness. Right? Then the Buddha goes on. Of course, it's a rather long, lengthy expositions, and piti sukha is just some of this form of happiness. There are other forms also mentioned there. Finally, the goal is not even this happiness in jhana, and so on. But the goal is a happiness that's more spiritual than the spiritual. This one. Niramisa tarang sukham. Okay? So actually, what is that? As a happiness that arises, when someone whose mind is liberated from the asava, from the negativities, from the outflows. One English word that's often used, from the cankers, from all the defilement, in other words. When your mind is fully liberated from all the defilements, chittang vimutta, mind is liberated from raga, and whose asava is kina asava, of course it's also adjective, is bhauri. Then when you review Paccavekkhata, this is a genitive or dative, you can say, of a present participle. Paccavekkhati. When you reflect, when you contemplate, when you review about your mind, which has been liberated from raga, dosa, and all the negativities, and moha, then highest form of happiness arises to you. That is what the Buddha means by, in the earlier description, as happiness that is more spiritual than the spiritual. So he said this, the one advantage of the Pali Sutta is that they are very articulate. They're not just vague statements. They're not meant to be just philosophy. They're really describing on the basis of, or from the perspective of praxis and realization of all the followers of the Buddha. Starting from the Buddha and flows on to those who follow the Buddhist tradition. Yeah. So this is why this is one of the senses in which I said that Buddhism is not philosophy. There is one I often said in my classes that I admire some very great Western Buddhists. One is the Edward Conze. He is critical of his own contemporary colleagues, Western colleagues, especially those who are so enthusiastic to present Buddhism as just a form of modern science, a form of logic, and the latest form of philosophy, whether it's empiricism or existentialism or linguistic positivism. No, he is very critical, and he warns his colleagues that Buddhist statements in the suttas, Buddhist doctrines must be understood as expositions on the basis of praxis, particularly of the practice of meditation, practice of realization. That comes from the words of a Western great scholar called Edward Conze. Have you heard of him? Great scholar. And he was best known for his authority on Prachaparamita, and I admire him very much. And people who like to quote the Kalana Sutta and say, Buddha says that our experience is the ultimate character. That's true. I never deny that that's a Buddha's teaching. That's a marvelous important teaching. But are we qualified to experience many things? You see? And you shouldn't quote the Kalana Sutta just to show that you don't need faith, everything is science, everything is empiricism. Kalana Sutta, the stance of Kalana Sutta is not the stance of modern British empiricism. That's like Conze, by the way. In one book, he says that he discovered it. He says that the Buddha found himself possibly conscripted into British empiricism. The Buddha found himself possibly conscripted, like you're conscripted into the army, against your view, conscripted into the tradition of British empiricism. Who conscript him? These modern scholars. So he warns. So this is what we see in his teaching, and you can see that they are very tangible in the Pali Suttas, and that you feel that it's kind of very much within the neighborhood of your soul, as it were. Buddhism does your soul. I'm just using it metaphorically. You feel very much that it's something that you can echo, you can respond to as a human being in terms of the possibility of the states into which our nature can be unfolded. So the Buddhist path then is transcending. How do you transcend? I say you don't escape, but you transcend. That's a message we learned from the Buddha, right? And all this discussion just now point to this conclusion. So how do you transcend? Transcending sensuality, you cannot escape from it. There's no need to be hypocritical. You follow, you take reference in the Buddha. Is I'm perfect in the 5 precepts. I'm not myself. No one is perfect until we gain the fruits, the spiritual fruits. So we don't have to be hypocritical, but we have to struggle with sincerity. So we don't escape. We cannot escape the facts of existence. We cannot escape our very nature of being essential, our nature of craving, but we can transcend them, at least struggling to transcend them gradually. How do we do that? We seek spiritual satisfaction. It's another word for happiness. And on the path, and finally, being led on to the unfoldment of the highest potential of ourselves as human beings, and that is the attainment of the most spiritual, So it's Nir-amisa tarang, the most spiritual, most truly meaningful, most truly blissful experience of happiness. And that is vimokha or vimukti. This is the true spiritual path. Finally, I think it is a lot of time. So let me finish very quickly now. I want to further illustrate the Buddhist path of positivity, because one of the messages today is that the Buddhist path should not be misunderstood as a doctrine of pessimism, a negative doctrine, right? I hope I have succeeded in demonstrating to you from the discussion of the above Sutta statement. So now, to conclude, let me quote one more teaching from the Samyutta Nikaya, from a sutta called Upanishad Sutta. Perhaps not, but that's a sutta that is little noticed, but it's a sutta of profound importance, because it's a sutta that teaches what you might call the positive form of dependent origination. Positive form of Patisamuppada, not the negative form. It's important to understand negative form. Negative form means, for instance, from avijja, you have some sankhara and so on. You see, finally, jati, and so on. You see, so you go round and round and round from ignorance, and then you have birth, you suffer, and then again you're born, you suffer, you're trapped, and that cycle, that cyclic mode of our existence is a mode of samsara. It's a mode of reactivity. It's a mode of conditionality. We are conditioned. We just react. Conditioned by what? By craving, hatred, ignorance, misconceptions, by ignorance. But I say, the Buddha also emphasizes that there's a way out. There's a way of transcendence. And this is represented by another mode of dependent originations. This is presented in the Upanishad Sutta. So it goes like this, you see. First, it describes from avijja, Upanishad, sankhara. From which means with avijja as the cause, as a near cause, you have sankhara, and so on. Finally, you come to jati, and then you have dukkha. So this dukkha is a human predicament. We are in this, in samsara. How does it come about? You are trapped in the reactive, cyclic mood. That is dependent origination, starting with avijja. But we can spiral out. So whereas cyclic mood is a mode of reactivity, is a mode of negativity, the spiral mode is a mode of creativity. Creativity means that you try to be creative. Means you have to go beyond conditioning. If your mind is conditioned, you only react based on the conditioning. When you transcend this, you become creative in the true sense. And Buddhism is possible. This is an affirmation of positive path. How does it go? First, from dukkha, the experience of unhappiness or of unsatisfactoriness, right? As a result of this, basing on this, faith arises. Again, our satta, note that I translated as faith, and some of you might object to me because many people have read modern English books. Again, this is one good example of what I was talking about as Western conditioning of the Indian of the Buddhist mind, of all the Asian Buddhists, whether Indian, Chinese, or Malaysians. I say I went through it because I was born in a country like Malaysia that was colonized. I received Chinese education, and then in my final couple of years, in my high school, I went to English education, and then I went overseas, and all these things. I got confused as a young man. So in these Western books, many modern Buddhists, they don't like to say Buddhism requires faith. No, we are intelligent. Buddhism is a religion of wisdom, not a religion of faith. That's very unfortunate. Why should we be so apologetic? But that again is a reaction based on some condition. What's the condition? Western condition. And the intelligent Westerners, according to our way of conceiving them, but which is also not quite correct actually. Many Asian Buddhists think that even to be Buddhist now we have to look up to the Westerners, right? They are clever, they are intelligent, they are philosophical, and we are not up to their standard. We have to look up to them. They are the standard. They don't talk about faith. They turn away from faith. So now they find this in Buddhism and say Saddha is not faith. Saddha is confidence. Haven't you seen that translation? To me, the word confidence is just at best lukewarm. Hardly expresses the idea of saddha. In the Sanskrit word, you can see shraddha. Shraddha is a heart. Da is to place a heart. Your heart is involved. So it's certainly, if you like, emotional quality, affective quality. And it's a very positive one. By the way, there are some great Western thinkers also, people like Eric Fromm. This I quoted Egbert Conze, but another one other quote is one of those great humanistic psychoanalysts that I admire. One is Eric Fromm. He basically lists or enumerates faith as a important positive virtue, important positive quality of human nature. And as a Buddhist, I must agree with him. So if you want to practice a Buddhist path, if you want to progress, if you want to be sincere, you can't have just simply confidence. Your heart must be placed. Your shraddha must be daha. That's a put, must be placed on the Dhamma, on the Buddha. You must really feel. One thing I admire about some modern Christian is that, not that I'm recommending their way, but at least I admire one thing. They say, they invite Christ into the heart, their life. Well, that doesn't mean much to us, but at least their sincerity is they feel that the Christ they believe is to be invited to be placed in their heart. I think that if the Buddhist can do that, and place the Buddha and the Dhamma in their heart, then we have really truly living Dhamma, not just intellectual, not bookish Dhamma, not philosophical Dhamma. You really feel it. You really get inspired by it. Then saddha. So the first statement says, when you have dukkha, when you experience dukkha in the true way, in the existential way, if you like, then saddha arises, faith arises. I cannot think of a better word for the time being in English. And that is a kind of a deep response from your heart, if you like, not just from your mind. Not just your brain, your computer is working, but your heart is ticking. That's important. That's a starting point of this higher form of progression, positive spiral. So this is dukkha. Based on dukkha, saddha arises. That is the starting point of the spiral, right? Well, I think many of you can kind of find meaning in their own life with regard to this statement. Very often we have very unhappy experiences. Unfortunate thing happened to us, misfortune. And then in this kind of situation, our sense of spirituality become heightened. We feel that, what should I do? Should I commit suicide? Should I escape? Is there a way out? You want to find a way out, and maybe you can find a way out. Or say, yeah, there's a Dhamma. It teaches like that. It teaches you not just philosophy, but it really leads you concretely from step 1 to step 2, step 3. You respond to that. When you respond to that, that is a sattva. Then only you can begin the journey. Yeah. So we are then therefore led by our experience of dukkha. There's nothing wrong about that. Nothing to be frightened about. So we respond with saddha, and with saddha next we have pamuja. So we feel a tremendous release of energy, happiness. This characterized by the word pamuja, joyousness. We find joy. Yes, I found a way. Yes, I've found the meaning of my existence. I have found a direction. Yeah, to saddha, we try to pamuja, joyousness. From pamuja, from joy, we come to even higher, rapturous joy. That's piti. And as a result, we gain what we call pasati. I spent some time trying to explain this one. We gain spiritual aptitude, if you like, in short. And with this, then we can experience sukha in the true spiritual sense. When the mind is happy in this way, then only we become integrated in the true sense, in the spiritual sense. We become unified. All our second energy become unified. They're represented by samadhi. When you gain samadhi, integration, equipoise, unification in this way, then there arises in you the knowledge and vision. Knowledge vision, I think it's better to put a hyphen in the word, of things truly as they are. Yatha Buddha Jnana Dasana. With this, then only you can truly, happily let go. Maybe you can shake away from the enchantment, even disenchanted, nibbita. And when you become disenchanted like that, then only become truly detached. So, as I have already said to you earlier, nibbita and viraga are not to be understood in a negative sense. Yes, spiritually, very profoundly positive sense. And with this, viraga, that is detachment, then you can be liberated. Because then only you can become truly free. That is to say, truly transcend all conditionings. When you have raga, you have attachment, you are attached to the conditioning. You are bound by it. Even bound by even Buddhist tradition, whatever tradition. Yeah? And finally, with this freedom in the true sense, mukti now in the true sense, then you gain insight into the destruction of all your negativities. And that is to say, your perfection. So this whole spiral path, starting from saddha to pamoja, to piti, to pasati, to sukha, to samadhi, to yatha buddha, jnana dasana, to nibbita, to viraga, this is viraga, and to vimukti, and finally to kaya jnana. You can count them, there are 12 links. Just like there are 12 links starting from avijja up to jati. Is it jati marana? As the presentation of the 12 link condition co-production. This is my translation of, usually translated as people translate as dependent origination. That is Paticca Samuppada. So here likewise, in the positive spiral of conditionality, positive conditionality, it begins with saddha and so on, and there are 12 links. So this is a very concrete expression by the Buddha, or in the Buddhist teaching, of the path of progressive happiness. And these happiness are not hepatic, because it follows a sequence, you see, that unfold according to the nature of things. Paticca is if you like, in a sense, objective principle. Given this, that follows. Given that, another thing follows. So there's a conditionality. There's a law. There's a principle involved. And here in this teaching of Upanishad Sutta, this conditionality is expressed in the positive spiral mode. Okay, I think I spent too much time. Let me, yes, come to conclusion. Among the points I made in the Dhammasavana, firstly, I talk about the Buddha's discovery and teaching of the Four Noble Truths. Then he gained insight into the true nature of existence, right? How we get trapped into dukkha, and dukkha is the human predicament, and this is because of tanha and so on, there's samudaya. But he also discovers that, yes, happily, fortunately, there's a way out, and he gives a path. So he discovered a way to transcend the human predicament also. And you can say that his Dhamma is a recognition of the intrinsic sentient need to seek happiness. That is not denial. Rather than denying it, rather than teaching an escape in a negative sense from it, getting out of it is quite a different matter. But escaping it by kind of avoiding it, eluding it, that's negative. So that's not done. Rather than that, he teaches us the way to acquire true happiness, absolute happiness, nibbana. That's the Buddhist path that we have presented today. More and more, greater and greater happiness. And that more and more, greater and greater progression follows a law, follow a principle. Is kind of intrinsically guaranteed. This way is presented as a path of progressive attainment of greater and greater spiritual happiness. And this progressively spiritual happiness is experienced as a matter of nature, as I said, and that's best illustrated finally by the transcendental condition called rising. That is the 12-link positive spiral that I've just given you. That need for happiness, that is within us, you see, if we apply it positively, with commitment, with proper devotion, then that need, importantly, existentially, propels us to seek meaning of our existence. It leads us to think, what do I really want? What happiness? Is there really happiness for me? Are there other high happiness? And so on. You see, you seek the meaning of existence, and when you have found a meaning, you find, yes, that's my meaning, that's my goal, I should live for that purpose. Then I need a frame of orientation. How do I move about? How do I go about moving towards that goal? You see? Now, here, I mentioned the psychoanalyst Erich Fromm, and of course, there are other important psychoanalysts. Today, we don't have time to highlight, for instance, Abraham Maslow, who talks about actualization, who talks about high meta needs of human beings, meta motivation. And all these are very much in line with Buddhism. Of course, what the Buddha say, I feel is much more profound, complete than what they are trying to say, but they are quite in tune with the Buddha's teaching. So Erich Fromm says, he tried to define what religion is. His stand is that the question is not religion or not, but which religion. So for human being, there's no choice. Do I need religion? I'm an intelligent person, logical person. No, I'm not the type of fragile, psychological fragile, superstitious kind of person. I don't really need religion. Erich Fromm said, no, everybody, every human, so long as you exist in space-time, you have what is called the religious need. So that brings to the point of what religion is, of course. It's a long story. And of course, he realizes that religion as defined in all the forms in the modern world it's not satisfactory, because most of the form involve the notion of Almighty God, the notion of worship, submission, obedience. All these, for instance, don't apply to, let's say, Buddhism, for instance. And he is very much inspired by Buddhism, actually. And so he says that when a human being responds existentially, you see, to the human predicament, and want to transcend it systematically by finding a frame of reference and object devotion, then he is religious. So religion is not a matter of going to the church, worshipping God. It's not a matter of going to the temple and worshipping just the Buddha. Religion, in the true sense, is your commitment to a frame of reference. You see, a set of values, concrete step. You need a frame of reference, and with a final goal of devotion. That is religion. And religion, defined in that sense, is needed by everybody, including the scientists and the logicians. You see how devoted the scientist is. He's devoted because he believes in his method. He believes that the method of science, and his experiment, he doesn't mind sacrificing all his private life and spending all his time in the lab, because he believes in that. He finds meaning in that. That is a religion. So no one can escape religious need in that true sense. Yeah. So they all speak of the purpose of life, the fact of being truly human, as the fact of recognition of the potential within us to come to higher and higher levels. The fact of the possible unfoldment of the human potential to the highest. For Buddhism, when that potential is unfolded to the highest, then one becomes enlightened. Yeah. So for the Buddhists, then, we can say that that frame of orientation that Arifam talks about is definitely the Dhamma. Yeah? And the goal is definitely liberation. And the path of the Dhamma is indeed a path of positivity, a path of spiral, of progressive, positive, happier and happier, more and more meaningful experiences in the spiritual sense. Okay, I think we have spent, what is it? Long time? No.
Thank you so much, Bhante. I wish we could, always listen to, suttas. I wish somebody could explain the suttas the way you had explained today. I don't have words to express my gratitude, Bhante. We would like to have our, Ashirwad and your blessings, Bhante.
Vivadana silisa nichang utta pachayino chattaro dhamma vattanti ayuvanno sukhang palang ayurarogya sampatti sakka sampatti nevacha ato nibbana sampatti nate samjatu.